57th session. You all know that these leadership talks sessions are being organized by India International Education Council and School Lalaji Solutions. India International Education Council is a not-for-profit organization which is working in the field of education. It has collaborators from 12 countries. It aims to create a better world through education. It also aims to build quality centers for elementary education. It also tries to find best educational practices across the globe and find ways to implement those in Indian institutions. It also tries to create more awareness in hygiene and learning disabilities. It publishes a magazine called World Education Review and many other educational reports. It aims to build 100 chapters in different cities by 2022. It will soon open its membership for institutions and individuals. It also imparts training for leaders, teachers, students, and parents. As I shared in the beginning that this is our 57th session, and so far we have organized 56 sessions successfully. During these 56 sessions, we had received 5,580 registrations, 4,829 questions. We saw the participation from 5 countries: India, USA, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Nepal. Like, from India, we have seen the participation from 19 states and 76 cities. We aim to organize 200 sessions, and during the process, we would be reaching out to 100,000 educators, 20,000 institutions, and 1,000 plus eminent speakers. Like today's speakers would be joining us to share their perspective. Eventually, we would be compiling all the thoughts into a document, and we would be sharing the document with the Ministry of Education and other stakeholders. Now, I would request you to join me in welcoming our today's key speakers. Our first key speaker for the day, Dr. Sumer Singh ji. Dr. Sumer is a director of education with Salad. He's a distinguished academician with over 3 decades of experience. He's an alumnus of Doon School and St. Stephenson College. He was the head of Delhi College Indore and director at Delhi College Business School Indore. He was also the head of school with the Lawrence School, Sanagar. He has also served as the founder director of the Asian School. Over the years, he has served as an advisor education in the government of Punjab, trustee and advisory on the executive of Round Square United Kingdom, and is currently serving on the boards of World Leading Schools Association, AFS India, Punjab Public School Nabha, Univariety, and Indore Management Association. He is also an advisor at Mayo College Girls School Ajmer and GCIS Bangalore, as well as a partner with GSD Schools Spain for their Indian collaborations. He received an honorary degree in Doctor of Literature in Education from the Manfort University, UK. Sumer Singh ji has authored 5 books. One was on Doon history, Daily College history, Unity in Diversity, which was on religion. Aussie in India, it was a travelogue, and Indian School Education Revered to Revive, a guide to school management. We are truly honored with your presence, Sumer sir. Thanks for joining. Your presence is very special. Our next key speaker for the day, Archana Mankotia ji. Archana ma'am is principal with the Maharani Gayatri Devi Girls School, Jaipur, Rajasthan. She is an alumnus with the Aditya Birla Public School. Archana ma'am completed her graduation from Sophia Girls College, Ajmer, post-graduation from University of Baroda, and B.Ed from Annamalai University. She was selected to attend a long international leaders in education program, which is a program of Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs of United States, Department of State at James Madison University, Harrisonburg. She has worked with teachers from Brazil, Senegal, Kenya, and Morocco to produce a professional development module strategies for active learning in small groups. She has also completed wide world course conducted by Graduate School of Education, Harvard University, on differentiating instruction strategies for teaching English language learners. She's a versatile educationist. She is a sports enthusiast, having played cricket for Rajasthan State and hockey at district level. Her passion for performing arts has led her to acquire a diploma in star and a professional degree, a Bachelor of Dance in Indian Classical Dance from Kathak. We welcome you, Archana ma'am. Thank you for joining. Your presence is special. Our next key speaker, Anita Gautam ma'am. Anita ji is principal with the DAV Public School Sector 14, Faridabad, Haryana. Anita ma'am completed her masters in English and B.Ed from Kurukshetra University. She has authored many help books in English for class 12th with Ratna Sagar publication. She was awarded with CBSE Pariksha Award for three consecutive years from 2005 to 8. Anita ma'am has also worked with DAV Police Public School, Madhuban, Haryana as principal. She has received many recognitions and awards like Shiksha Shiromani Award, Inspiring Teacher Award, among others. We welcome you, Anita ma'am. Thank you for joining. Our next key speaker for the day, Neeta Arora ji. Neeta ma'am is principal with Shri Venkateshwara International School, Dwarka, Delhi. She has a rich 39 years of experience in the field of education. She's a state awardee. She's a CBC resource person and master trainer. She's also a consultant, with British Council Tata Consultancy Service. She's a teacher skill auditor with EQFI. She's also a winner of National Extempore Speech Brainfeed. She is also the vice president with the Sankalp Sahodhya CBSE cluster. We welcome you, Sunita ma'am. Thank you for joining. Neeta ma'am, welcome. Our next key speaker, Ms. Sakshi Jain. Sakshi ji is principal with Adarsh Public School, Meerut, Uttar Pradesh. She is a distinguished academician with decades of experience. She has been awarded and recognized for her contribution to the field of education. Our next key speaker, Dr. Puneet Goswami, who is a professor with the SRM University, Haryana. Dr. Goswami completed his PhD in Computer Science and Engineering from State Government Technical University of Haryana in 2013. He has a 15 years of teaching and corporate experience. He delivered an invited talk on security in cloud reference models and secure identity management mechanism at IBM Employee Activity and Fitness Center, North Carolina, United States of America. He has been published 42 times in international and national journals. He has also published a book on big data. He is also a member with IAENG and IEEE. Dr. Preet sir, welcome, and your presence is special. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Our next key speaker, Mr. Jaswinder Singh. He won't be able to join due to some kind of emergency. Next speaker would be Mr. Savio John. Savio is the national head of quality with Torrens. Savio has been performing live since the age of 9 and has toured many cities and various bands across India. He's a gospel musician and has featured in many TV shows. He attributes his skill and knowledge to church music, which laid the foundation during his years of formation and music education. He's currently with Torrens heading quality in India. He hopes that someday music would be compulsory subject in schools. The creativity, discipline, and communication that music demands would help them become better individuals. So we welcome you all. Today's session is very, very special due to your presence, and we expect a wonderful interaction with all of you. The more we have interacted with leaders, the more we have realized the need for this platform, and there is so much to learn from all of you. So let's begin the session formally. I would request Sumer sir, if we can have your opening remark first, and then we'll come to all the speakers for their opening remark. Sumer sir, can we have your opening remark? Okay, so might be he's facing some technical glitch. I would request Archana ma'am, if we can have your quick opening remark.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Good morning, everyone. I am really honored to be part of this distinguished panel of eminent personalities and from different fields also. So I'm looking forward to hearing from others and learning something from them. And this is the need of the hour to discuss the national education policy. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sumer sir, can we have your opening remark?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think it's a privilege to be part of this whole discussion. I personally believe that each individual child has his own strengths and weaknesses, and we have to bring out those strengths so that the child feels more confident and is more successful in whatever he or she does. And I think the new education policy is moving in that direction. Thank you.
Absolutely. Big thanks, sir. I would request Anita ma'am, can we have your opening remark?
First of all, a very warm good morning to all the eminent speakers in today's webinar, organizer and other participants. My heartiest congratulations to Indian International Council of Education for organizing this 57th webinar. And I'm sure, as ma'am has already said, that here we are to learn. And I'm sure the data collected by Rajul Pratap ji would definitely would be of great help to the government of India when they are trying to implement this policy. And at the outset, I would like to say that for a well-defined and futuristic education policy is the must for every country. And because education is the key driver of economic and social progress of any country. So taking into account their respective traditions, culture, different countries have adopted varied education system. And recently, what the government of India has done by taking a giant leap forward by announcing its new education policy, almost 3 decades after the major revision which was made in year 1986. The policy has come at the very right time and with the very right noble objective. But I'm sure there is a word of difference when laying down a policy on paper and actually implementing it. So we are here to hear from our eminent speakers what they are to say about this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Neeta ma'am, can we have your opening remark?
Rijul and eminent speakers, especially Dr. Sumit Singh, you really inspire me, all of you, because you're focused. And the country is focused to make education better. But I do hope this euphoria lasts forever. Euphoria to realize where are we lacking and how can we make it better for our children, because children are the future of the country. I mean, a country which has taken so many years to make education as a basic necessity for children under 14 has to wake up faster. It's high time that education gets its due. And everybody, not only just the teachers or the parents, everybody in the community, politicians, world leaders have to realize education is the only way forward. You cannot run this globe by just politicking. Now, if we have found certain loopholes in the existing system for either the policies were never bad, all the education commissions that came in past were good. It's the implementation part where we lacked. If we say no fail policy till grade 8, did we actually use it the way it was supposed to be? It was meant to remove fear from the mind of the children and make them enjoy learning. But it turned into whether you teach or not, whether you go to school or not, whether you have enough teachers in the classes, children will just go to grade 9 easily because till grade 8 you don't have a fail policy. So a policy should not give you loopholes, should not give you shortcuts. A policy should make the children actually stronger, better, and happy about learning. Learning will happen automatically. People who do not go to any schools also learn their trade. But if they go to a school, they must learn the skill and also the human values required to utilize that learning. Right now, we're teaching our children how to crack a board exam. We're teaching our children how to pass without even attending, or how to get those 20 or 20 internal marks. I think it's important that all of us become honest about our profession. Children and the parents also become honest. And I think the series of talks that we're having is going to help us reintrospect how can India actually learn to become the force it wants to become. Give education is due, give education is due, give education is due.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a very powerful, I would say, a powerful opening remark. It has set the tone for the session. Thanks. And can we have Sakshi Jain ji? I saw that she logged in. Sakshi ji, are you here? Okay. So, Dr. Puneet, I would request if we can have your opening remark.
Yes. Good morning, all the panelists and the participants. Today, I'm just hearing all the panelists and their views and the opening remarks. I found it very interesting, and I'm looking forward for a very fruitful discussion today on this platform. We are looking forward for a decoding education policy we are going to discuss today. I think the best part of today this discussion is that we all are together, either from the primary, secondary education and the higher education. and let us correlate all our discussion together and see how we can improve this education system. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are here for that purpose. Puniji, thank you. I would request Savio if we can have your opening remark.
Very good morning to everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate in this session and present the brand Torrance. And I'm looking forward to learning so much from all the eminent panelists here. Thank you.
Thank you, Savio. And with this, we come to the next part of the session. That's the main talk session. And, I would request all the speakers to share their thoughts and perspective in detail. So 8 to 10 minutes for each speaker. We would begin with Sumer sir. Sumer sir, you are an institution. You represent the entire community. You saw the first policy. You also saw the second policy and its execution. If also the failures at some part in that policy. So I would request you, while you are sharing your thoughts on this policy, I would also request you if you can suggest some roadmap, for all the future educators or the current educators, how we can successfully implement this policy. Right. Sumer sir, over to you. Sir, you are on mute.
I'm actually quite a dinosaur in this group. I've been, part of the new what was then the new education policy when I was advising Sri Rajiv Gandhi, and I've seen various opportunities to correct the path ahead. And in fact, some of the things which I have been asking for from the Ministry of HRD for the last 30 years have now been put into the new education policy of 2020. So it's a great feeling of satisfaction, even though we've lost a lot of time. And as has already been said, having a policy is one thing, implementing it is another. But I would like to say that this is an excellent policy. It is a very well thought out policy. It's covering almost all aspects of education. And if we can go ahead with this, I think it's going to make a huge difference to the students, to the children of this country. First of all, it is recognizing preschooling. Preschooling has not been recognized, and it has been the cause for a lot of students to enter the system a little late and not being able to catch up with those who entered at the right time. So that's a very important thing. The second is the recognition of soft skills. We have always seen the recognition of hard skills, but we have not seen the recognition of soft skills. And that has become even more important now, that the prediction is that students who were born as late as 2007 are going to actually live for between 100 and 150 years. So if that is the case, then we need to have the kind of soft skills where we are going to be able to change our profession at least 7 times during our lifetime and be able to continue to change and adapt right till the time we retire. So that's a very important aspect. Then there's the recognition of co-curricular activities. Co-curricular activities and special interest clubs and societies have been recognized for the first time. And it is these activities which give children a sense of self-confidence, which give children the opportunity to explore what they are interested in, and often it develops into a profession. So this is another opening up of the education system. Then there is return to an old system which had been abandoned. Why it was abandoned, I don't know. And that is teaching 2 levels of mathematics and maybe a few other subjects, languages maybe. Now, I know that maths is a big bugbear for a lot of children. And the educators expect very high levels of mathematics. So to introduce a second level is going to make life much easier for children to be able to concentrate on things which interest them more than mathematics. The common entrance is something which I tried pushing 30 years ago. And that is that if you have a common entrance test for universities, then you will take the pressure off the school exams. And it was accepted by the government, but they said that we don't have the system to be able to have simultaneous different language tests, which I think is not the case now. Now we can do that. Then the integration of streams. Most schools have only science and commerce. Humanities is being recognized and mentioned as something which is very important, especially if you go back to ancient India and the kind of learning that we had. So integration of streams is something which personally I've been following in my schools for the last 30 years. The problem is not that it can't be done. The problem is, will schools do it? Because it means more teachers, more expense. And this is the problem we are going to face, that you may change the policy and have integrated streams, but will schools follow it? Then you have the integration of social and academic streams. This is something which I actually did in 1997 in Punjab. But then when I left as advisor education Punjab, it was reversed. Because it is very important that every student has at least one vocational subject in his package of academics. Then you have counseling and career counseling. This has been recognized. We need to train a lot of counselors and career counselors to succeed. Experiential learning, concepts and application rather than rote learning is being emphasized. I'm very happy about that. Open schooling will help more people join in. Then to track the learning levels, this is something which is done in most countries, and I just hope it is done so that we have accountability and data without putting more stress on the students. So the kind of testing that is done should not be marks oriented. It should just be to be able to know whether the levels have been reached or not. And of course, it will mean accountability for the teachers. Special education is being mentioned. We don't have enough special education teachers, so we need to concentrate on this. The teacher-student ratio of 1:25 is again something which is very ambitious and very nice. So let's hope that happens. The introduction of technology in education is very important, of course, and that is again being looked at. Basically, it's a student-centric policy, and where even the teachers will be remunerated on the basis of merit and results. Teachers will have to have in-service training regularly, and the whole teacher training system will have to be revised. Now, what a few areas, as you mentioned, that I should suggest, what could be looked at beyond what has been done. One is that self-discipline. You see, we talk about discipline. We have to move towards self-discipline of the child. That will last the whole life. The kind of discipline that we have in schools today will not suffice. The second is that you've talked about a home language for students, especially in the lower classes. The problem is going to be for students who are mobile, for parents who are mobile, for people in the army, for people in transferable jobs. When they go from one state to another, the child is expected to switch languages. I know I'm on the board of a school in Punjab where suddenly Punjabi was made compulsory, and all those parents from Bombay and Delhi who are not Punjabi speaking have withdrawn their children and taken them back to their home states. So this is a kind of dividing up the country in a way. I had suggested long ago, when this was way back, when Mr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, that why don't you involve business houses? Business houses should adopt a school, or they should make a school, create a school, and they have to give the name of their business house to that school. Then we will be sure of their seriousness, and we will end up with a lot of good quality schools which can be designed as per the new education policy. There is not enough mention of encouraging private schools. See, private schools are the ones who have delivered so far, and they have to be given some incentives. Infrastructure and funds. We can talk about how the budget is going to be much bigger, but we are not even utilizing the current allocation. So funds is something which I'm not convinced is actually going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, then infrastructure of washrooms, labs, library, etc., will probably also not happen. My solution, which I would suggest to the government, is that like you have the civil services for administration, for accounts, for foreign affairs, you need to have a civil service of education. So add that one more civil service which people can aspire to join, and then you will get very highly motivated people coming into the system. Thank you.
Big thanks, sir. Some of these suggestions are very unique suggestions, and connecting corporates, with schools, certainly is very innovative and very powerful idea, sir. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. We'll come back to you with questions. And now I would request Archana ma'am. Ma'am, you have worked with many prestigious institutions. You are yourself an sports enthusiast, also art lover. There are a lot of I would say points there mentioned in the policy, regarding these these things to induct in formal education. So I would request for your perspective on this NEP and your thoughts. Archana ma'am.
Thank you so much. I would like to briefly talk about the core issues of education, the challenges of education, which remain the same, but the dynamics changes. For example, one is to begin with why, the why of education. Why do we educate? So that the important part is that it is a path of self-discovery. You grow as a human being, and basically education prepares us for life. So when you read through the new education policy, it is very comprehensive and holistic, and it in a way caters to the entire growth of a human being. So in that part, in the vision part, I think it really formulates very well. The second is, whom are you teaching? That is your students. We have to change the perspective. Now there has to be a fresh perspective. There has to be more personalization of teaching. What I feel is that one size fits all is no longer relevant. Students do not have to adapt to the style of the teacher. Rather, the teacher has to understand the learning style of the student. That is a very important part which we as teachers have to understand. And so the teacher, as Sumer sir also said, the teaching has to be student centered, learner centered, and teachers have to innovate themselves to personalize it and connect to the students in a more personal manner, so that they are able to give a fresh perspective to the whole teaching. The education policy acknowledges all these things in its introductory passages, which I've read, and it does say that our children need to learn how to learn, to be multidisciplinary, to be able to adapt and absorb the new changes which are happening in an emerging world. So that is being taken care of by the education policy. The third point is, what are you teaching? And that's the curriculum. So curriculum today needs to be very, very dynamic. It is not just about books and knowledge repertoire, but it has to go beyond that. And it has to be with experiences, with understanding, and creativity, innovativeness has to really come in. We have to have our curriculum centered around that. And we have to incorporate global perspectives and dimensions and connecting the local with the global. So all these things have to be taken care of when we look at the curriculum. And I'm happy to note again that in the education policy, this has been addressed because they have introduced new subjects. They're talking of introducing new pedagogical initiatives like artificial intelligence, design thinking, holistic, healthy, organic living, global citizenship education, and also mathematical, computational thinking, fun subjects such as pottery and carpentry, metal work, electric work, along with Indian values and ethos of Swachhata, Seva, Karm, Satya. So they have thought of a more comprehensive curriculum and reducing the content to the core essentials. That's also was really required because too much of information does not help. Flexibility in choosing subjects, as Sir said, and then the no separation between vocational, academic, curricular, extracurricular, humanities, arts, science, all that will be removed. So all in all, change in assessments, everything gives us a very robust curriculum. That again has been addressed very well in the policy, and we just need to wait now when these new subjects are introduced. What is the content being collated in those subjects? The fourth point is, how are you teaching? Classroom management. Now, when I say classroom management, I'm not looking at children sitting quietly and doing their work, but the whole dynamics of a class. How dynamic that class is, how interactive, whether the children are taking responsibility for their learning. Till now, I think the teachers have been just following a very linear way, step-by-step way of teaching. But now we have to look at a 360 degrees approach. So that is very important, that the children have to become self-learners more than being told what to do. And this again has been addressed by the new education policy, because they are talking of experiential learning, hands-on learning, discovery-based learning, inquiry-based teaching. So they have covered this aspect also as to what should a class be like, and it should not be within the four walls of a building, but it should go beyond. The fifth point is, what are we using, the aids of teaching and learning, and that's technology. For years, the technology has been chalk and blackboard, but in the last 20-25 years, things have changed, and in the last 10 years, it has changed drastically. And within the last 1 year, of course, we all know how pandemic has in a way been blessing in disguise for the teachers to transform themselves as very tech savvy people. So that has helped teachers to become very, very technology savvy using the digital mode of teaching. However, the challenge now is that we cannot become very comfortable, because technology changes so fast. By the time teachers are comfortable, there is again the technology has changed. So the teachers need a constant training in technology. Again, the policy has again addressed the digital, because under the Digital India campaign, they have a lot of interesting and very helpful resource on the website, like Diksha and E-Labs and O-Labs, and a lot of things are available now. So policy is looking at digitalizing. How it will pan out all over India will be a challenge, because we have constraints of infrastructure and funds and other such things. So that would be a little bit difficult, but at least it is being addressed, and it is being recognized that we need to digitalize. The challenge again comes, how much is too much, what kind of resources, how much time to be spent, and at the end of the day, teacher still is more important than technology. So the teacher needs to be very well versed with technology and how much to use. The last point is, who is teaching? Now, I think that is the most important part for me. Who, that is the teacher. The teacher is at the core, because all these things that we are talking about, all that entire policy that we are talking about, the teacher is the main driver. The teacher is in the driving seat. And we really need to handhold our teachers. Of course, again, the policy talks of a good 4-year B.Ed course and 2-year, 1 year, and from time to time they'll have continuous professional development, which is like 50 hours of compulsory CPD and merit-based promotions. and things like that. So that should really come into implementation, because that is where we really require. Our perception of a teacher today is unfortunately not a very respectful one, because we all feel, I mean, generally society feels that those who cannot get a job anywhere else go into teaching. So that really, that perception needs to be changed. So all in all, I feel the policy really pans out beautifully and covers the entire spectrum of education, and all the dimensions of education. The only concerns being the implementation, as Sumir sir has already mentioned, regarding funds, regarding infrastructure, regarding the sincerity of implementation uh, through all the stakeholders. One unfortunate part that I have experienced in the last few months is the priority being given to education. A lot of countries have received economic aid during this corona crisis, but received any kind of aid or help from the government or any organizations, and the private schools have really, they really have to fight it out in these last few months. We, as in school educators and management, really wish to do something for the society in terms of education. So I think he also needs to understand that we are all in it for our children, and we all need to prioritize education. And I think I really agree with Subir sir's suggestion that civil services, while the education should be a separate department, so that you really have very distinguished people coming into this fold and then taking this entire policy forward. So thank you so much. Thanks for giving me time to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Archana ma'am, for sharing your ideas. And you talked about many positive points mentioning policy, be it the digital part of education, and eventually said that teachers as the key drivers. They have to take us forward. So we need to empower teachers, we need to train teachers, and that is going to be key. And certainly, we all can agree with this part that education needs a more focused approach, from government. And since 60s, we have been seeing in different policies that 6% GDP expenditure, has been required, has been asked by different experts, and still it's very less than that. So big thanks. We would come back to you with questions, ma'am. Now, Anita Gautam, ma'am, I would request if we can have your ideas, your thoughts in detail. Anita Gautam, ma'am.
Thank you, Rajul. To begin with, I would say that, as I've already said, that the policy has come at the right time and the objective is very noble. But again, I would say that there lies a word of difference between laying it on paper and following it in the spirit. The success of NEP 2020 and the pace of its administration would definitely depend to a large extent on how successfully the government, universities, schools can tide over the practical challenges being faced when implementing it. We all know that NEP is very positive reimagination of India's existing education regime. The policy envisions a model of holistic learning, which is integrated, enjoying immersive, having scientific temper and evidence-based thinking. And it would be alongside this would be, we will be developing aesthetics and arts of our students too. The main tenets of our policy have already been said by Sumer sir, which is flexibility for learners to choose their trajectory, equal promotions of art, science, physical education, and other extracurricular activities. Multidisciplinary approach, emphasis on conceptual learning rather than rote learning, and also on creativity and critical thinking. Sir has also said that the cultivation of life skills like cooperation, teamwork, empathy, resilience would be there. And there would be regular formative assessment for learning. And the policy encourages peer tutoring as a voluntary and joyful activity for fellow students under the supervision of their teachers, trained teachers. And furthermore, taking the students out of the four walls of the classroom to a real world. And from the foundation stages, young students will be exposed to the multiple languages, and it has a very cognitive benefit as the children tend to pick up all the languages very fast at their very formative years. Sanskrit to be offered at all levels of schools, and higher education as an essential enriching option for students, while regional languages for those interested. But again, coming back to the impediments to implementation in school, what comes to my mind are, first of all, we need to change the mindset of the people. You know, there would be several challenges while changing the mindset of parents, teachers, grandparents, educators, as the current education system is a hangover of British and industrial age. So a STEM-based, like which was science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education focused generation has to give way now to the NEP 2020. And the corporate would also need to align this and change its recruitment and grooming policies. And then for that purpose, we need to reimagine and adopt our pedagogical changes. As ma'am has said, that education must be in developing foundation skills of literacy and numeracy, and high order cognitive skills like critical thinking, social and emotional skills, and other cognitive skills like emotional skills, which are empathy, grit, perseverance, leadership, and teamwork. Therefore, NEP calls for such value-based learning along with significant curriculum and pedagogical changes, which are tough and need to be reimagined for successful implementation. And for that reason, we need to rethink our assessment module too. The boards, those who conduct the school learning examination, will have to rethink their assessment parameters for students and also to identify the appropriate learning content rubric. School textbooks, which have not been changed since 2004, have to by NCERT, now they need to be realigned. Formative assessment is virtually absent, and if all of you must be agreed to me that CC system there was nothing bad in that, but I am sure that you agree that it was not implemented that seamlessly as it has to be. So for that reason, we need to change our assessment schedule, module 2. And ma'am said that who is teaching? That is the educators. So we need to train our educators. So implementing such bold objectives, we need to we need to train our teachers, educators, and official staff appropriately, along with preparing a pool of excellent motivating guides, so as to make learning an enjoyable and engaging task rather than arduous one. The policy will have to redesign a learning ecosystem, and which takes into account the geographical and cultural diversity of our country, as well as the varied learning pace of each student. So, and for that reason, we need to have a bottom-up approach. Bottom-up approach means that we have to have for this social and educational transformation, we need to have a grassroots level implementation. In the grand scheme of things, we need to have an important action that would be of repairing and revamping the system. Our transformation is required from what to think to how to think. And then I feel, as ma'am has said, that in the last 2-3 months, all of us have faced a lot of things for our teachers. And for that for that purpose, we need to raise the bar of our teachers. No doubt that the school needs to hire the very best and the brighter into the teaching profession at all the levels. They need to be reinstated as the most respected and essential members of a society, as they are the one who truly shape up our next generation of citizens. Work also need to be done in removing personal and professional barriers of workshops, working in remote, in education, which is crucial for preparing this workforce and also for making NEP successful. As you said, sir, that sir has said that there is lack of funds. And for that reason, because we all know that over 250 million students are expected to enroll in schools in India by 2030, with a teacher-student ratio of 1:35. So India needs to have estimated 7 million plus teachers to address this huge student population. Teaching also happens to be one of the lowest paid profession, with an average teacher earning around 2 lakh per year. And due to these constraints, conceptual and experiential teaching will be tough as compared to the prevailing content-oriented teaching. More funds allocation is required to overcome this shortcoming. Also, the current pool of teacher has to be reoriented towards the new age of teaching techniques. Further impediments which comes to my mind is learning or certificate that we are talking about, that now there would be many more options for students. No doubt there would be flexibility in the higher model through the concept of multiple exits which is an important step for reducing the number of dropouts. But a question still arises on the value of such certificates and diplomas. The Indian psyche is very much closely associated with jobs, and the degrees for associate jobs with the degrees acquired. Hence, we need to, dismantle the archaic thinking which is a very dangerous paradigm if that undermines and discourages the innate talent of the students or the candidates. When we talk about the multidisciplinary education, the existing education regime includes formal training and orientation towards pedagogy for college and university educators. This urgently calls for an overhaul of the curriculum design to make it more flexible and organic, enabling foundational and higher order thinking skills. The policy seeks to establish multidisciplinary institutes for higher education, replacing single disciplinary ones. So this is a commendable step, but we need to consider how to do it. As ma'am has said, digital connectivity. We require internet penetration in remote areas because e-learning is the way forward. As we witnessed during pandemic, digital infrastructure for this purpose will include digital classrooms, experts-driven teaching, online modules, technologies to overcome gap in the physical teaching like lab infrastructure, uniform assessment schemes across schools, career counseling sessions, and teacher training to become adept at new age technologies. So this will continue to be a major challenge in the next decade because we all know that how much we are equipped to handle all these situations. So to conclude, I would say that NEP has come up with a very beautiful mission and it is very aspirational one, but the implementation roadmap will decide if this will truly foster an all-inclusive education that makes learner industry and future ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, and absolutely we agree with this part that NEP certainly is a beautiful document, and execution is going to be key. And just to execute so that we can have the fruits which has been envisaged with the policy can be achieved by the coming generations. So big thanks, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts. We'll come back to you with questions. Now, I would request Nita Arora, ma'am. And when we have Nita, ma'am, so we can be assured about a powerful and full of energy, panel. So welcome, Nita, ma'am. Your thoughts.
Everybody has shared salient points of NEP, so I'll not dwell on them because you already have been hearing about them. Let's talk about what can we do presently to be ready for NEP adoption, because everybody said implementation is the key word. A few points. Bagless days. So while we're planning for next year's calendar, try to have a few bagless days planned in your school curriculum so that the children are given exposure of something else, which could be experiential learning done better, vocational education performed better, in which you invite local artisans or local people to come and train your students, because the existing teachers may not be equipped to give the vocational education to the children. Also try to think of those holidays which not all children go out in. So those who stay in Delhi or in the states, or those who even go out but have access to online digital resources, should be given vocational education during vacation. So the vacation word should now change. Vacation, like we're seeing in pandemic time, People are taking classes almost the whole week, special classes even on weekends. So now I think if we want India to become a knowledge superpower and a vocationally independent Atmanirbhar Bharat skilled, then it's important that the school education actually gives vocational education. We have been very good in imparting academic education, especially good schools have made the children learn the academics very well. But what about making children use hands? Our engineers do not wish to work on machines. Give them a computer, they're very good. They'll want to work on software. They want to develop apps. They want to earn moolah through designing softwares for banks, by financial institution, advertising industry. But when it comes to working on machines, producing in India stuff, no, we don't produce so much. We have to buy from other countries. And that is where most of our hard-earned money goes, in buying products from outside and then maintaining them in India. And even for maintaining, you require parts. So you want your children to enjoy working with hand. I mean, if you talk to any child, what is your first choice in after getting into IIT Mumbai? Computer engineer. What is next?